Let's get sweaty.
Hello and welcome to the first ever Shenmue Dojo show. As the name suggests, this show will be all about Shenmue, the series, the history, the future, with news, interviews, music and more. So firstly, let me introduce myself. I'm James Brown, co-owner here at ShenmueDojo.com, and I'm joined by my partner in crime, the other half of the ownership, Matt Oliver. How's it going, man?
Yeah, good man, how's it going?
Yeah, all good here, great stuff. So firstly, to kick things off, you will be aware that we just celebrated our 20th anniversary as the original Shenmue resource. That's a crazy long time, 20 years, eh? To celebrate this milestone, we've both been working hard away on our own projects for the website. But on Matt's side of the fence, he's been hunting down fantastic interview opportunities with various well-known people connected to the Shenmue series. One of those people was Ryan Payton. So Matt, would you like to tell the audience who Ryan is and what his involvement was with Shenmue?
So I'll summarise this so I don't spoil too much, but Ryan Payton was instrumental in actually getting Shenmue 3 off the ground in terms of the Kickstarter. So he presented the idea of using Kickstarter to Yu Suzuki in 2014 as a realistic way of getting Shenmue 3 funded and getting that development started. And Ryan sort of over the interviews has talked a little bit about how he met Yu Suzuki, his influences on the game, Shenmue in general and his feelings towards it, and also a little bit sort of about his own career and the things that he's achieved in the gaming industry. And to be fair to Ryan, he's been completely open and honest with me, and they're well worth the listen. I'm just working on parts 2 and 3, so they should be out probably in the new year, actually.
That's great. I mean, you can listen to part 1 right now over on the Shenmue Dojo YouTube, and we're going to try and get that as an audio podcast kind of format as well, alongside this particular show that we're recording right now. So hopefully you'll be able to discover Matt's interview with Ryan Payton there in some form somewhere. Like I say, just go on YouTube and go on the Shenmue Dojo VOD channel, and you can already find that first part of the interview there. And obviously Matt says part 2 and part 3 are going to come later. I think you said that you're going to combine part 2 and 3 into one big episode. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Because unfortunately, Ryan had to sort of cut part 2 a little bit short, but he's promised me some extra time to sort of carry on from where we left off, and we actually were discussing something very, very interesting at the end of the interview in part 2. But I won't spoil it. I'll leave it for when we go live.
Great stuff. So now, throughout the show, we're going to be playing messages from various people detailing their fondest memories of Shenmue. And to kick things off, talking about him just, here is the one that Ryan Payton has recorded for us himself. So enjoy.
So my favorite Shenmue memory is sitting in my college dorm room in the year end of 1999. I'm studying Japanese at college. I have a Japanese copy of Shenmue with me, and I'm just slogging through that game, not understanding everything that's being spoken to me, but understanding enough for me to get a sense and getting transported back to the time I spent in Japan as a high school student, and just being just awash with nostalgia and memories, and being just so impressed with how fully realized that these Japanese neighborhoods were. And it's just a feeling that I've never had in a game, not just, being transported to Japan in particular, but just being transported to a world that was so familiar and so realistic and so just so believable. So that was my first and earliest memory of Shenmue, and it's probably the strongest. It still remains to this day.
Enjoying the WinterFest? Why not keep listening to Radio SEGA once it's over? There's plenty of live shows, and you can even request your favorite music from our playlist. You're listening to Radio SEGA, playing the best Sega music 24/7.
So Matt, besides Ryan, who else have you been speaking to, and what can listeners expect going forward?
Well, by the time this actually airs, you would have heard an interview by the person who put Shenmue into Dreams on PS4, Bloodhound Town. He's an American-based Shenmue fan who has created most of Shenmue 1 in Dreams, like for like. He said to me it's well over about 200 hours on this project, and it's due to come out on Christmas Day, in fact. So hopefully there's no more delays for it, because he's already delayed it once to make things a little bit better and sort of tighten things up as he goes.
That'll be a good Christmas present.
Yeah, it'd be a very good Christmas present. If you've got Dreams and you're a Shenmue fan, pick it up, because it's going to be in VR as well. So you'll get that sort of full-on VR experience with it, which I think he's done a really good job, actually. I was really, really impressed with the work he's done.
Same here. What he showed off on, he's did a YouTube video himself, didn't he? And it looks really good. You know what he's been able to create. You got the dojo and the Hazuki residence there. Really good stuff.
It's really, really good, and it's these sorts of fan projects that sort of kept the community alive. If you think going back to the darker days when there was nothing going on, so it's good to see these things still happening, actually. So yeah, that's one interview that I've carried out, and he's all ready to go. As of recording this right now, I have a booking with Cedric from Shibuya Productions, who obviously was heavily involved in Shenmue 3, and we're going to be talking about the Shenmue 3 project. We're also going to be talking a little bit about Cedric's gaming history, because he's as much of a Sega fan as anybody that I've met, to be fair to him.
Yep.
And I'm also going to sort of talk to him about his upcoming projects and other things that he works on, because I think actually sometimes we forget that Cedric is a man of many talents. He's got a manga that's already come out. He's worked on TV shows, and they've just had a new game from his studio, Twin Mirror, which came out on the 1st of December, which I'm still looking to pick up.
Yeah,
So
same here.
keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, that game looks pretty cool, to be honest. It's got looked a bit kind of like the Quantic Dreams style games, with like Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human, those type of games where there's quite a good story element to them, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's certainly. I like those sorts of games personally, and I think it looks like it's something that would definitely appeal to my taste. So I'm definitely looking to pick it up. I actually can't get hold of it at the moment. It's really frustrating. I want a physical copy, because I'm old school like you, James. I like having
of course
in my hand. So I'm.
Is it a PS4? Or it's not PS5, is it?
No, it's PS4. I think it's PS4 Pro enhanced, so I imagine it'd get a little performance boost on the PS5. You can also get it on PC through the Epic Store as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, worst case, I'll grab it off of there, but I'd rather have it in my hand. But that's just me being fussy, I think, more than anything else.
That's fair enough. And just while you mentioned the PS5, have you tried out Shenmue 1 and 2 HD and Shenmue 3 on the PS5?
Yeah, Shenmue 1 and 2 run quite nicely. Actually, there's very little difference in the terms of the way they run. It's to be expected, really, I think, because they pretty much eked out every bit of performance on the re-releases anyway. Shenmue 3 sees a nice performance boost, actually. For those who remember playing it on the base PlayStation 4 or the Pro, some areas are a bit stuttery. The frame rate would chop and change quite a lot. It's now locked 60 frames per second on PS5. It's a really nice, smooth experience now. So if you haven't tried it on PS5 or haven't played the game yet, but have a PS5, pick it up, put it in the PS5, and the performance is night and day different. It's really good on there.
And does it improve like character fade in? Because obviously, as you're running around, especially in Niawu, the characters pop in the distance and taking a while to load to get to an NPC to chat to them, kind of thing. Has that been improved as well?
It's definitely a little bit quicker. I wouldn't say it's as bad as it would be on a base PS4. The difference between the PS5 and the PS4 Pro probably isn't massive, but again, it's still a performance enhancement. I think it's probably limited by the game engine more than anything else, because they can't brute force it through. And they probably need a patch to fix it. But all in all, it's definitely an overall performance boost, and it's well worth putting onto the PS5 if you want to play it.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So, Matt, going back to the interviews, obviously for the 20th anniversary, Shenmue Dojo's 20th anniversary, you also interviewed Andy Bandos, who was obviously the original owner of the Shenmue Dojo. It used to be called Rio's Place when he first created the website. So you can check that out as well on the official Shenmue Dojo website. Should still be quite easily accessible, I think, if you go through the news sections on the front page. You should be able to find that interview.
Yeah, it should be quite accessible, so it can't be that far down yet.
Yeah, well, it was only last month, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So should be okay if you wanted to read about the original Shenmue Dojo owner and what kind of he's up to these days. But I wanted to ask how are you finding these interview processes so far? Is everything going as well as you expected it to, or better?
It's a learning curve, I think. The way I want to interview people. I'll openly admit it. I'm a wrestling fan, so I watch these sort of wrestling YouTube videos and interviews quite often, and I like interviews that they ask a question and then they let the person go into the stories, answer those questions, and then you can sort of follow up around those stories and around those times that they're talking about. So I like those interviews. So I want to interview in that sort of style because I think it's quite relaxed. It makes people sort of at ease and just enjoy having a casual chat with people at the end of the day, because that's what I want it to come across as. It's a casual chat between people who enjoy and love Shenmue at the end of the day. I'm not going to lie, I was definitely nervous when I started picking these up.
Yeah, it doesn't show.
You should.
It's all honest. You've just really great job on the interviews you've done so far.
You should have the one with my part one with Ryan. I was a nervous wreck beforehand because obviously you want to create a good impression, don't you?
Exactly. I'd be the same. Yeah, and someone of his caliber and. You feel like you don't want to embarrass yourself, do you?
Yeah, it's exactly that. And also, you don't want to waste their time. You want to ask good questions. You want to get some good answers and get some good discussion out of the interviews. And I think, by and large, I think I'm getting that. I'm improving as I go. I'm learning on the job, so to speak. But I enjoy it. It's good fun, and even the editing of everything down and getting everything ready, I quite like that. I find it quite therapeutic, actually, in some respects.
Yeah, well, I mean, considering you've never done it before, I think you've done a great job so far. And there's a lot of things that we're both kind of doing for the first time, and hopefully we're coming across as though it isn't the first time. We've kind of just delving deep into the deep end, really, and hopefully people are enjoying the content that we've put out so far. But anyway, let's move on. So for this particular Shenmue Dojo show, we've kind of partnered with Radio SEGA's WinterFest event. So if you're listening to us live through Radio SEGA, welcome. That's amazing. And thanks for spending your time with us. There's always some fantastic shows that make up the WinterFest event. And me and Matt were honoured to have been asked to be part of it. So since we're on Radio SEGA with this first show, we thought it would only be fitting to play some Shenmue tunes throughout. So to kick things off, we're going to play one of my favourite Shenmue tracks. Here it is. It's Endless World.
Hello, I'm Bloodhound Town, and my favorite Shenmue memory is going to the Heartbeats bar late at night to ask about Charlie. That's it.
You're locked in to Radio Sega's WinterFest 2020. Snow, shows, and Sega all weekend long.
So that was Endless World, a song which is from the Shenmue 1 Orchestra soundtrack, but it doesn't actually feature in Shenmue 1 to the best of my knowledge. I think the first time we hear this track outside of the promotional footage before the game's release was in fact in Shenmue 2 in a scene Ryo has with Han Hui in Manmo Temple. From memory, only the first part of that track's played, kind of creating this sort of like moody atmosphere inside Manmo Temple. But I love how the song evolves throughout, and halfway through completely flips. That part, it kind of gives me chills when it really kicks in, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. So Matt, I thought it would be good for the first show to go back to our roots as gamers and talk about our history of gaming, and more specifically Sega. So why don't you kick things off?
I try and keep it as brief as I can, because I think we'll go off at a tangent talking about all things Sega, and while I think we'll enjoy it, I don't know how much everybody else will. So I'll try and keep it brief. I blame my dad. It's his fault I'm a gamer. He bought me, ironically enough, thinking way back, a Commodore 64, if you remember one of those.
I remember them. Yeah, I don't think I ever owned one though.
For those who don't remember them, you used to have to put cassette tape into a deck.
Yeah.
And it'd load up all the funny colours on the screen, and then you'd have your game.
It's a good nostalgic memory there. Same with I had the Spectrum ZX, and that was the same with the cassette thing, and you had to wait like half an hour for the You can't. I think it read the tape, didn't it, throughout the whole tape, and obviously it was creating this image on the screen before you could play the game. It's really cool.
It's funny, isn't it? And actually, I wouldn't ever advocate it, but it was really easy to pirate these games because you could just shove them in a tape deck with a blank tape and away you went. You'd have pirated games on the Commodore 64. I'm a bit naughty. I'll get someone knocking on my door now, but never mind. So I had my first experience with Sega was Outrun, actually, on the Commodore 64. We had that, had the port on there, which was, I remember that vividly.
How did that play? Did that play any similar to the arcade release? Or
it's really hard to remember, but I remember having a good time with it. So I'm gonna leave that as it was.
Do you reckon Yu Suzuki was involved in the Commodore 64 version, or?
I'd imagine there'd have been some involvement somewhere. I don't know the history about it, to be honest. It's something that could be a topic for the Sega groups. I think how much involvement he'd had in that particular port and the other ports that were around outside of the Sega machines at the time.
Sure, someone's already done that.
Yeah, probably have. So sort of after the Commodore, I was bought a Sega Mega Drive, which I chose over the I think it was the old NES at the time. I remember seeing Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario side by side, and it wasn't a contest for me. Quite honest with you, so I picked up Sonic the Hedgehog and NHL. I think it was a double header pack with John Madden Football, and that was it. I was hooked on Sega from the offset. So I worked my way through the Mega Drive. We picked up a Sega Saturn not too long after it launched in the UK. We had Sega Rally. We had Virtua Fighter. We had Virtua Cop with the light gun. And again, I was enamoured with it. I just loved it. The Sega Saturn, in my opinion, is actually a highly underrated console for the library it's got. But I won't go into that in too much detail now. And then from that straight onto the Dreamcast. I think it was Christmas of launch I got that. Got Sonic Adventure, I got Soul Calibur. Later on, picked up games like Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio. Trying to think what else I picked up. Sega Rally 2.
From launch, did you get Power Stone?
I didn't, actually. It's one I didn't get. I regret it now because it's really expensive to pick up. And then obviously Shenmue, which one we're going to talk about in a lot more detail very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. That's a clue in the name of the show, I think. Great stuff. Yeah, so, I mean, I share same kind of timeline as you, Matt, apart from, obviously, I had the Spectrum instead of the Commodore. But my first real console was Mega Drive, similar to your experience there. Sonic, obviously, a massive part of that. And then I moved on to in tandem with the Mega Drive, I picked up the Game Gear. And so whenever we used to go on a drive somewhere with my mum and dad, I used to play on the Game Gear in the back seat for as long as the batteries would last for, at least. And then we had the Mega CD add-on to the Mega Drive, which, I really enjoyed that. A lot of the FMV games, and that's where I first played games like Final Fight, and obviously Sonic CD was a great game on that system. And then obviously we moved on to the Sega Saturn, similar to yourself, Matt, and I agree with you. I think the Saturn's library is totally underrated. In fact, when I think of what my favourite console is, it's very hard to choose between the Dreamcast and Sega Saturn, but I do kind of edge slightly to the Saturn just because I feel like I've got a bit more nostalgia with the Saturn. Although the Dreamcast has, in my opinion, the better games, there's just something about the system, the Sega Saturn system, that I just really enamored with. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just, I think because it was so underrated, I'm kind of a hipster in terms of that kind of. But then again, so is the Dreamcast in it. So, they're both as good as each other, I would say. And obviously, then picked up the Dreamcast at launch. I remember waiting outside game for it to open, and picking up a Dreamcast on launch day. I got Sonic Adventure, Power Stone, Blue Stinger. Oh, Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle I picked up as well. And obviously Christmas that year Shenmue came out, so picked that up on Christmas Day. I didn't really get a chance to play it because obviously it was Christmas, and we were going to have Christmas dinner with the family and opening presents and all that kind of stuff. But I do remember having a 20-minute little play on Shenmue before, the festive events, where I just watched the intro to the game and walked around Rio's room, opened all the drawers, and I knew straight away it was going to be something special. Just we'd been following the game in the official Dreamcast magazine and all the different Dreamcast magazines until release, so I was expecting great things, and obviously it didn't disappoint, and the rest is history. This is where we are now. We've followed the series for the last 20 years, and it's literally changed our lives for the better. So that's my history with Sega consoles and Shenmue. And I think it's time we play another track, Matt. So you've got a song that you wanted to play next?
Yeah, this one is one of my favourites. It actually got played at my wedding. It's called Memories of Distant Days. You'll recognise it from the cutscene where Rio's eating his carrots. Remember to eat your carrots, folks. And also in Shenmue 3, you will come across this track where he finds the second sort of cherry blossom Shenmue tree in Bailu Village, and you see his dad's punch mark on the tree, and it just has a little sort of flashback to the scene under the cherry tree in the dojo, which I think is quite a powerful moment. So yeah, Memories of Distant Days it is.
Brilliant. Let's play that now.
Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. I'm Eric Kelso, the voice of Masayuki Fukuhara, Guizon-chen, and Ren of Heavens. You know, Shenmue really holds a special place in my heart, especially since I was lucky enough to play 3 very different characters. Shenmue was also the first time I had so many lines of dialogue and such developed characters in a game. Up until that time, I had done mostly just exertion sounds of hitting or being hit. But with Fukusan and Guizan, I really could feel their personalities, so that was especially interesting. And then in Shenmue 2, I got to introduce Ren, who was a blast of voice, and there was more action with Ren as well. I especially remember when Ren and Ryo were handcuffed together and running and fighting. Corey and I actually stood side by side and put out our arms to simulate being cuffed together, and did the entire day's recording that way. So we were exhausted, and by the end, I think the heavy breathing and the pain in our voices were pretty authentic. I also feel so lucky to have made so many great friends through Shenmue. The people who have come to Japan, or I have worked with on projects, are all very important friends of mine. So, thank you to everyone in the Shenmue family. Congratulations on surviving 2020, and I wish you all the best in 2021. May the gods be with you.
Okay, welcome back. That was Memories of Distant Days, and a fantastic message there from the great Eric Kelso. I've been working with Eric Kelso recently, as he has a huge feature in the upcoming Shenmue World magazine that the dojo has created. We did a rather extensive and exclusive interview with the legend himself, and as a fantastic gesture, Eric has also offered to sign a print for each of the backers for the Kickstarter, which, at the time of recording, has around 24 hours remaining. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all for the support over the last 30 days. It's been absolutely mental. I can't wait to get the magazine and all of these extras out to everyone. It's certainly going to be a busy period over Christmas for myself, getting everything packaged up and ready for all of the people that have been kind enough to back. So I thought it would be cool to go through the series section of the magazine. It's got a bit of a synopsis of each of the games of the Shenmue series, and I thought we'd have a little chat about each game. So let's get into it with Shenmue 1. So obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone that's listening to this show will already be familiar with the Shenmue series, but in case you aren't, Shenmue 1 follows the story of Ryo Hazuki in 1986 Japan, in search for answers after witnessing his father get murdered by a mysterious man known as Lan Di. The game was written, produced and directed by Yu Suzuki, who pioneered the open-world genre by creating a fully breathing and immersive world with a full day-night time system, where characters had their own daily schedules. The game also featured real-time weather effects based on real-world meteorological data from the time, fully voiced non-player characters, and he made QTEs a popular addition to games going forth. The game also featured a fully interactive arcade comprising some of Yu Suzuki's classic Sega arcade titles and a fighting system based on Yu Suzuki's own Virtua Fighter engine. The game was released on 4 discs, with the first 3 discs comprising the story of the game, and the 4th disc allowing the user to connect to the internet and delve deep into the lore of the world, with full character profiles, information on all the locations of Yokosuka, and much, much more. This disc was coined Shenmue Passport and was a treasure trove of additional information. So I've got the release dates of Shenmue. We got released in Japan on the 29th of December 1999, in EU the 24th of November 2000, and in the US the 6th of November 2000. And in Japan, they also received a special version of the game called US Shenmue, which was released only in Japan and allowed Japanese fans to experience the North American dubbed release of the game. This meant that it contained full English dialogue, but with Japanese subtitles. So Matt, talking about Shenmue 1 here, what is your fondest memory of this classic iconic game?
For me, it's where Guizong actually teaches Ryo the swallow dive kick just before you start sort of really engaging with the Mad Angels. For me, it shows a nice sort of character side to Guizong actually in terms of his development. He starts to soften towards Ryo, and I think it's just a nice touching moment because he begins to relate to Ryo's plight in seeking revenge for his father, because he admits to Ryo that if he was in his shoes, he'd be doing the same thing. So it's nice to see that bond start to develop between the two of them, obviously leading into the events that sort of go on further on in the game. So it's a small moment, but a nice moment all the same. What about you, James?
Well, for me, I would say the introduction to the game, it's really iconic for myself. As soon as Ryo sees the gate of the Hazuki residence, it's smashed, and he's unaware of what's happening, really, because no one foresaw, apart from Ryo's father, this event that was about to unfold, where Landy has come all the way to Ryo's home and in search of the Phoenix Mirror. Actually, in search of the Dragon Mirror, wasn't it? And he didn't realise that they also had the Phoenix Mirror. So obviously the sound, the music of this whole scene that plays out it's incredible, really, how it kind of it builds up. They really designed the music around the scene to actually what was happening on the screen at the time. And obviously Ryo goes into the dojo and sees his father being in mid-fight with Landy, and it's literally how the story then unfolds from that point going forth as Ryo goes in search of Landy, and basically after revenge for him murdering his father basically in front of his eyes, and obviously he steals the Dragon Mirror, and that's how the game ends up continuing from that moment, really. So that whole intro for me is really iconic, and I remember watching it for the first time and just being blown away by the graphics and the cinematography that Yu Suzuki was able to create for Shenmue 1, and in particular, it's just it's incredible, really. So I thought, with that being discussed, we'll play the intro music, which it's actually called The Initiator, and we'll play that piece of music right now.
WinterFest 2020, December 18th to the 21st. Only on Radio SEGA.
So that was the intro music, which is called The Initiator, which obviously you all know from the introduction cutscene of Shenmue. So let's move into Shenmue 2 now. Shenmue 2 continues where the first game left off. Ryo arrives in Hong Kong in pursuit of his father's killer with only one clue to aid him. A letter from Master Chen containing an invitation to meet a master known as Li Xiao Tao. Along the way, Ryo will meet new friends and foes alike, taking him from the unfamiliar city of Wanchai to the seedy underbelly of Kowloon and finally the tranquil Guilin. Originally released for the Sega Dreamcast and then later on Microsoft's Xbox console. Due to exclusivity rights obtained by Microsoft, the North American Dreamcast version was cancelled. Because of this, no English dub was recorded for this version, so the European release instead featured the original Japanese audio with English, French and Spanish subtitles. Like the original Shenmue, Shenmue 2 was developed by Sega's AM2 and directed by Yu Suzuki. Some of Shenmue 2 was actually developed in tandem with the first Shenmue, giving the games the title of the most expensive video game ever developed at that time. So, obviously, it was then released for the Xbox in 2002, bringing some slight improvements to the overall experience. The most significant difference was the inclusion of a full English dub, with Corey Marshall reprising his role as Ryo Hazuki from the first game. Also added were 2 new gameplay features, a snapshot mode to take pictures to store on the Xbox's hard drive, and an adjustable image filter to alter the colour of the game. The graphics were improved by the Xbox's more advanced hardware, such as improved water effects and bloom lighting. The length of the load times were also slightly reduced, Dolby Digital 5.1 support was added for the game's cutscenes, and the frame rate now ran at a much more consistent 30 frames per second. So the release dates of this, we've got the Japanese release date of the Dreamcast version was the 6th of the 9th, which is September 2001. And we've got the 23rd of November 2001, which I assume is the EU release date. And then it was also re-released in the EU on the Xbox on the 21st of March 2003, with the US getting it a few months earlier, the 28th of October 2002. So Matt, what is your fondest memory of Shenmue 2?
I think there's a few kicking around. I'm sure many Shenmue fans would sort of cite as their favourite. It is a game full of them, so identifying one it was tough. But for me, it's the whole rooftop sequence at the Yellowhead building.
Amazing.
So after you sort of fought your way through to the top, you have what's considered the boss fight with Dolnio, of course, and you have that stare down with Landy on the helicopter, and it's like he's just slightly out of reach. But it's almost, for me, it's the first time that Landy almost takes on Ryo, that he might be a threat, that he might actually be useful to him. I mean, these are things that are still to be answered, but I think the whole package together in terms of the way the scenes were choreographed, the way it was set out, the music, everything for me at that point was it was amazing. And actually, I think at the time, when I first played Shenmue 2, I took that as the end of Shenmue 2, if you like.
Yeah.
And then sort of Guilin was sort of an add-on, if you like. But I think, for me, that's my favourite memory of Shenmue 2, without a doubt. It's probably one of the most, if not the most epic moment in the series out of all 3 games for me.
It is really cool, and I like how the sky, it's all purple looking and orangey. It's a really great moment in the series, that is. Especially after the onslaught of the 40 floors that you had to get there to reach the roof as well.
Fighting your way up through scores and scores of Yellowhead thugs and everything else, planks, you name it.
Definitely.
He got up there and he did it. So James, what's your Shenmue 2 memory, most favourite one?
Wow, you touched upon it then with the Guilin section. That for me has always been my highlight of the series, really. Just the music that plays in that area, the scenery, to squeeze that extra into the game, which, like you say, I'm pretty sure a lot of people felt like that was the end of the game. And then suddenly you're moving on to Guilin. It's mind-blowing, really, that they were able to squeeze so much out of Shenmue 2 like that. You've got pretty much a 2-hour walk, and I think it's really quite a testament to Yu Suzuki how he's developed a game that you've spent 2 hours a sequence of literally just walking. There's no action, there's no fighting. All that's in the past now after the scene on the rooftop. You've just got this calm, peaceful walk with Shenhua through Guilin, trying to get to Bailu Village, and that part of the game is just it really winds you down. It's really a nice way to end the game, and up until the point there that it ended the series for a long time. How the story in the cave at the end just goes nuts, and all this magical, mystical elements that they threw in right at the end there, which really kept us hanging on for the next 15 years until obviously subsequently we ended up getting Shenmue 3, which we'll touch more on in a moment. But just for me, that whole section, the whole Guilin section, is my favourite in the series. And
I'd tell you, I'd call it daring. It's bold, it's brash. I know that the setting of Guilin is very peaceful and tranquil, but when you consider the transition from where he's come from in Kowloon to having that peaceful 2-hour walk, it's a heck of a risk in a game, isn't it? When you think about it, it's a massive risk. But I think I didn't appreciate it till later on in life, actually. But I think you look at it now and you think, A, it's a big risk, and B, they pulled it off. And it actually fits the context of what they're trying to do in Shenmue 3, which, as you say, we'll touch on in a minute, with the development of the relationship between Ryo and Shenhua, I think.
Yeah, and for it to be at the end of Shenmue 2, if you've got to that part of the game, you've already fallen in love with the series, you're already happy enough to go through that excursion. If they'd have waited for Shenmue 3 to put a 2-hour walk on at the game, I don't think people being introduced to the series would necessarily have a very good idea of what type of game this is, with a 2-hour walk to begin Shenmue 3, for example. So it was good that they kind of put it at the end of Shenmue 2, and you really appreciated that journey that Ryo took. A lot of games would probably just have a cutscene that takes you from one point to the next, but Shenmue really let you manually do that walk, and I'm very thankful for that. So we're going to play a piece of music from Guilin, of course, and it's going to be the introduction to Guilin as Ryo's arriving on the boat that he's just left from Hong Kong, and he's just arriving in Guilin, and this is the piece of music that plays. Okay, so moving on now to Shenmue 3. We recently did a Twitch live stream with the help of Cop Media and Deep Silver and Sega, of course. And this included special guests Adam Koralik, James Rayner, and the legendary Corey Marshall. And after the stream, we actually had a little chat with them before leaving for that night. And this is what they said.
Okay. So my fondest memory of Shenmue was, frankly, beyond the game, when you started getting to interact with the people who made the game. The first time, I think my most exciting moment, though, was I was in Los Angeles, and I got to meet someone who's, you could basically say is the voice of the game, of the franchise. I met them, I started fangirling, and it was just the most insane time. I got to meet Yu Suzuki. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep. I'm sorry. You thought it was you. You thought it was you.
Well, oh, you sneaky bastard! When you put in the voice of Shenmue, yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for making me smile on the inside. I felt all warm and fuzzy for a moment, and I thought, oh, Adam really does care. He doesn't. It's not just a whole show. It's not just a whole outside show. No, he feels no. And then you. Thank you. All right. Thank you for humbling me there.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
You're a friend. I can make fun of you. That's fine. No, in all seriousness, like Corey becoming one of my best friends is obviously a great thing. But it is an amazing coincidence that I met both of you in Los Angeles. So I had that whole thing planned out. I hope you're happy with that.
Nice. That was a good one. That was a good one. You had me. I had that warm feeling right here, and then you snubbed it.
I did. But the serious answer to that, because I have met Yu Suzuki, I've met him, I met a bunch of people in the Shenmue who are responsible for the game. That is really the experience. Is outside of the game, getting to know all the people who are responsible for its creation has been by far the most rewarding experience, having been a Shenmue fan.
And actually, I'm gonna piggyback right off of that with actually something very similar. So my favorite experience with the Shenmue franchise is similar to Adam's, in the sense that actually getting to spend time with the creator and the man behind it, Yu Suzuki. When you sit down and you talk to him about Shenmue, I had the opportunity to sit down, have lunch, you know what I mean? Or if we're playing a beta version of the game that hasn't been fully fleshed out yet, I remember one time he opened up his laptop and we had a chance to play the unfinished version. And when he talks about Shenmue, he gets this sort of like gleam in his eye. I don't know how to explain it. Like he's a very like cool, calm, down to earth kind of guy. He's great. He's one of those guys you just want to be around and talk to. But when it comes to Shenmue, something starts to stir within him. You know what I mean? And you can see that. You can feel it when you're talking to him and you're looking in his face and he starts to talk about this or that and something like the details in the mud or the water or something like that, or to some of his favorite characters. He really does. You can tell that it's not just a job for him. You can tell that it really is a passion project. And that sort of feeling, I think, is also infectious. That's what gets me so invested in Shenmue when I speak to him and how it's like how a proud father talks about one of his children. You know what I mean? So my favorite experience is actually just sitting down with Yu Suzuki and talking about sometimes even just minute details or overall story and some of his favorite characters, like I mentioned before. That seeing him and how he feels about Shenmue really gives me a feeling that this is his magnum opus. Like this is his project. This is like I said, it almost feels like it's another child of his that he gets to share with the rest of the world.
You're listening to WinterFest 2020. For our full programming schedule, check out radiosega.net.
Okay, so Shenmue 3 was released in November 2019 with a huge 18-year gap between its release and the previous installment, Shenmue 2. It was developed by YSNet, produced by Shibuya Productions, and published by Deep Silver for Windows and PlayStation 4. The story continues where the second game left off in 1980s Guilin, China, with Ryo now on the quest to find out about Shenhua's missing father, whilst also still on the hunt for the man that murdered his father, Lan Di. Familiar friends and foes await Ryo as his journey from the rural town of Bailu Village to the sprawling port town of Niawu. Like the previous Shenmue games, it consists of open-world environments interspersed with brawler, battles, and quick-time events. It features a day and night system, variable weather effects, non-player characters with daily schedules again, and various mini-games. So obviously there was a real outcry for the series to return, and ultimately Shenmue 3 was given a Kickstarter project to try and help bring the series back from the grave, basically. And I've got a little bit about the Kickstarter here. So at the June 2015 E3 conference, following years of speculation, Yu Suzuki launched a Kickstarter campaign to crowdfund Shenmue 3, with Sega having licensed Shenmue to Yu Suzuki's company YSNet. The campaign met its initial target of $2 million in under 8 hours, making it the fastest Kickstarter campaign to reach that amount. It ended in July 2015, having raised over $6 million, making it the highest funded video game and the 6th highest funded campaign in Kickstarter's history. So, Matt, what are your fondest memories of Shenmue 3?
Well, apart from it actually seeing the light of day. Shenmue 3 is an interesting case, and I think actually it'd probably be a discussion point on itself actually down the line. You got to consider everything that it's done very well in terms of it was a natural transition from Shenmue 2 to Shenmue 3. It kept the feel and the atmosphere of the original games. So with that in mind, one of my favourite moments in the game is actually in Bailu Village in Rainbow Basin, where you find I think it's called the second Shenmue tree in the translation, but I'm not quite sure.
They do call it the Shenmue tree, don't they? Yeah.
I'm not sure whether that's translation error or not, or it's a cherry tree or something, but you see the imprint on the tree where someone's been training martial arts, and it kicks into memories of distant days, and you get that little sort of snippet of Ryo training with his father again from when he was a child. And that for me is everything that Shenmue's about. It's creating those emotional connections, because when I felt that and I saw that, it took me back to the first game and took me back to the reason why Ryo is chasing Lan Di down, is because he wants not only vengeance, but he loved his father, and he wants to repay everything that he's done for him. And you also had, I think it's Grandmaster Feng, come up and ask Ryo if he was aware, because obviously he sees him from behind, and that's sort of a telling moment in the fact that obviously there's people in Bailu Village who still remember Awao being there and training there, learning there. And yeah, for me that's an iconic moment in Shenmue 3 in terms of something they did exceptionally well at that little point in time in that game. And for me it felt like the first two games in that respect, I think.
Yeah, there's some really nice moments actually in Bailu Village, just learning about the history of the village, and obviously the Verdant Bridge as well, and the characters involved there. You see them as children in those cutscenes, and I think those are some of the best bits of Shenmue 3 actually, aren't they? Where you know you're learning about Ryo's history again, and Iwao being in the village, and everyone kind of having a little memory, or at least some characters have memories of Iwao, and that really, you take a step back really and think about that, and it's pretty cool that those links and those ties there are actually discussed, and some nice history built into the game there. For myself, I would say I really appreciated the arrival in Niawu, and obviously we've got the iconic music there from the Sega Saturn footage that we had at the end of Shenmue 2 on the Xbox. That's something else that fans would really like to see one day, the Saturn version of Shenmue. And obviously that piece of music that they played in the trailer for there, it's actually playing as Ryo arrives in Niawu, and it can kind of give you some chills really. And obviously at this point now, at the end of Shenmue 2, we're in Guilin, on the journey to Bailu Village, and it's at this point in the game where we've waited so long for the third game to be produced, and Ryo's been in Guilin for all this time, and the Bailu Village, and now this is literally the next part of Ryo's journey. He's on the way to this new port town of Niawu, and the player at this point in time is, we don't know what Ryo's got in store. Really, we're still on track to find Landy, and we've been told he's somewhere in Niawu at this moment. So, leaving Guilin for the first time in 15 to 18 years and arriving in a brand new Shenmue area, that moment was really cool, I thought. So, because we've just talked about that, I'm going to play the piece of music there that I just spoken about, the Sega Saturn theme for Shenmue, and obviously it's now in Shenmue 3, and it's called Flow of the Lijiang River.
Hi there, my name is Casey, host of the Sega Lounge podcast, where I interview prominent members of the Sega community, like the co-owners of the Shenmue Dojo, and video game industry people related to Sega. I'm also part of Radio SEGA's staff. Those who are familiar with my radio shows and podcasts know well of my love for Shenmue. The first two are collectively my first game of all time. That obviously means there are many special moments in both games that I hold dear. The original Shenmue is, as I said many times, a game that changed my life. It opened my eyes to different games, different genres of music, and even different cultures. One particular moment that stuck with me for the longest time was the ending of the first game. Seeing Ryo getting on that ship and watching it sail into the horizon while the epic theme song plays and Shenhua's poem is recited, it still gives me chills. Actually, all the cutscenes that involve arriving or leaving a place are amazing. Arriving at the harbor for the first time with snowy scenery playing, arriving in Kowloon, leaving Kowloon, arriving in Guilin, and the moment when Lane D leaves by helicopter. All great memories and great pieces of orchestral music. Chills, man. Literal chills.
It's that time of year again. Time for Radio Sega's WinterFest. Join the community over the weekend for live shows, giveaways, the best Sega music, and a whole load of fun. For our full programming schedule, check out radiosega.net.
So that was Flow of the Lijiang River from Shenmue 3's opening cutscene, The Arrival of Niawu. Obviously, as part of the series revival, we ended up getting Shenmue 1 and 2 collection, which was released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. And that was released in EU and US on August the 21st, 2018, and in Japan on November the 22nd, 2018. So, riding on the coattails of Shenmue 3, Sega brought the original two games to modern systems with D3T at the helm of the development. They featured a host of updated features and found its release on PS4, Xbox One, and Steam, which I just said. After Shenmue 3's successful project, Yu Suzuki stated that he strongly wanted Shenmue 1 and 2 to be remastered to let newcomers play these original two games and be prepared for Shenmue 3. It would also preserve the Shenmue series and make it more accessible to both new and old fans. And a limited edition box set, including a double CD soundtrack for both games, was also released exclusively in Japan. So these updated features we got were full 1080p 16:9 resolution, modern and classic controls, modern HD user interface, English and Japanese voice, English, Japanese, German, French, Chinese, and Korean subtitles. Saves could be carried over from Shenmue to Shenmue 2 on all platforms, and you can now save anywhere in both games. And obviously they added some achievements. So what were your thoughts on the revival of the Shenmue 1 and 2 collection here, Matt?
I mean, I think it was obviously a natural progression. I mean, from what you read and what you've seen in the media, Sega may have been thinking about this around the time of the Kickstarter of Shenmue 3. I mean, we don't know. But certainly, I think it's a vital piece of Shenmue history in the fact that it's allowed for preservation of the original games on modern platforms. It's allowed new players to come in, because if you look on social media, you do see people picking up Shenmue 1 and 2 for the modern platforms and enjoying the game. So I think it's a segue into the series. I think D3T had a lot of work to get them to work on modern platforms. I know there are some issues in terms of some of the music and some of the sound effects in the games on certainly on the console versions, which I know the PC mods have corrected. But I actually think they're a perfectly serviceable way into the series. And I mean, you can pick two games up for the best part of £20.
Exactly.
You're not going to complain. But two games, £20.
Two of the both greatest games ever made.
Yeah, exactly. And they're both sort of 20 to 30 hour epics. So all in all, I think you've got a good bang for your buck there. You've got serviceable ports that run on modern platforms, and it's part of that series revival, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's part of the collective revival of Shenmue as a franchise.
Yeah, and what did you think of the leaked footage of the actual remaster that they were working on?
Do you know something? It's one of those catch-22s. If you don't see it, you're unaware of it, and you imagine things in your head.
Yeah, you're happy with what we got.
Yeah, but then we've seen what could have happened. What may still happen, we don't know. I mean, I'm guessing. There's no basis for me saying this. I'm just guessing, and I wonder what it would have come out like. What I wonder how it would have worked. I wonder in terms of the fan base how it would have been received, and I wonder what it would have done in terms of attracting new players. I think what they showed, certainly in Shenmue 1, which looked relatively well done.
Yeah,
Like it certainly looked like it was towards beta. I might be wrong. I know Shenmue 2, they hadn't got anywhere near as far through the game, but what they had on screen, what obviously was leaked, which caused a bit of a stir, if you remember.
yeah.
It was very, very good, and it's a project that I would love to see finished. I believe one day it will, but it's not going to be anytime soon, I don't think. But I think it's worst case scenario. It's a piece of Shenmue history, a bit like Shenmue on the Saturn.
Yeah.
That is vital, I think, for the community to see what was being done behind the scenes. I mean, I go back to my opening point on it. It's one of those things that if we never saw it, we'd be none the wiser. But for a preservation, for sort of an analysis of what was going on with the franchise, it says to me there was big ideas going on behind the scenes, and it says to me that there are people in high places somewhere who obviously have a soft spot for the franchise and want to give it everything it can to be as successful as it can. And I think while obviously it was dropped for whatever reason, and we don't know the reasons behind it, I think going forward it's a basis for imagination, it's a basis for the community, it's a basis for people if they want to start thinking about their own fan projects, as we've seen with Shenmue in Dreams, for example. So I just think it's a vital piece of the franchise history, and it feeds in sort of obviously into the sort of the further revival. It feeds into, I think, just everything.
What could have been, really.
What could have been, and where we could end up, and we don't know where we could end up, but I think we have some idea of where the franchise is going, and I'm sure we'll discuss in a moment.
You heard it first then, folks. Matt thinks that we will eventually get a Shenmue remaster.
Yeah, don't put your money on that, folks. Just blame me for losing all your money.
Hello, I'm Cedric Biscay, and my fondest Shenmue memory is the day I got a yes from Yu Suzuki.
So, that's kind of the series in a nutshell, but I'm just going to go over briefly some of the sort of offshoots that we received. So, obviously, before Shenmue was actually released on the Dreamcast, we had a demo disc that was released in Japan called What Shenmue, and this was due to a delay in releasing Shenmue in Japan. Anyone who pre-ordered the game was given a demo of on the original intended release date, and this demo features a playable portion of Dobuita, although not all of it is accessible. You play as Ryo, much like you would in the full game, only instead of searching for clues on his father's murder, Ryo is actually looking for Mr. Yukawa, who was the senior managing director of SEGA at the time. So, did you manage to play this demo, I'm assuming, Matt, at some point?
Many years later.
Yeah, same for me. I think it was with the being able to purchase stuff on eBay. Yeah. This cropped up, and that was one of the purchases, one of my original purchases off eBay, probably, no doubt.
I got it really cheap. I think I paid £15 for it on eBay with shipping.
Yeah,
I was well happy with it at the time. I made got a code breaker disc made up for it, and had to go through it, and it's quite clever actually when you think about it. Obviously, as you say, it was a demo released on the original intended release date for Shenmue 1. But it's very, very clever marketing in that respect, because it keeps people interested. it whets the appetite, and also
it gave everyone a taste of the game, really, the gameplay and everything.
It's a goodwill gesture as well, is it? It's not like a ha ha ha, we're not releasing it, you have to wait sort of thing. It's like we know you're patiently waiting. We know you want this game. We can't release it just yet, but here's a taster for you. And I think now it's part of sort of Shenmue folklore, isn't it? And in terms of the series, and there's little nuances in it. Like I think in the U arcade, there's an stand-up outrun cabinet, for example, which isn't in Shenmue 1. There's other little tweaks and bits and pieces in there that aren't in Shenmue 1. So it's interesting.
There's that weird button if you press B and he crouches for some reason.
Yes, there is, and it's an interesting point in the game's history, and I'm sure the modding community have torn it to pieces to get any little secrets out of it. But again, it's a vital part of the franchise history, and it's if you can pick it up on eBay or from anywhere, it's well worth adding to your collection, because those games that disc will become rarer and rarer. And if you really want a rare version, get the yellow Famitsu version, which came out in Japan. That's really rare and really expensive.
Yeah, that came with I think the Famitsu magazine. I don't know if it was like free on the front cover or you had to send off for it. I'm not 100% on that.
I don't know, but it's
rare. That's a really cool version.
I've seen people pay hundreds of pounds for it.
And obviously they released a video as well, a VHS called What Shenmue, and that had some early footage of Shenmue. And this footage included what is now the infamous bicycle, which Ryo's seen getting on and riding along the streets of Dobuita. So that would have been a cool addition to the game. Obviously, I can't understand why they took that out, because obviously Shenmue 1 areas aren't huge, so the bicycle would probably take a lot of that running around out of it, really, wouldn't they? You get on a bike and then you'd be getting off 2 seconds later. So, in terms of fast travel, it's not really that required in a town as small as Shenmue 1's.
It's folklore, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be nice to see if we could get it.
It would, I think. And I might be wrong in my assertion here, but wasn't there talk of it supposed to have possibly been being implemented into Shenmue 2 as well? Or
well, there was. I know Switch from Phantom Riverstone, he was investigating the bicycle in Shenmue 2 as well, and we know because from an unreleased part of the game we got a screenshot for it. I don't know if it was in a magazine or something at some point, but Ryo's seen on a bicycle in Shenmue 2 as well, in the South main quarter, and there's a little girl on the back of the bike as well. And we were theorizing a bit where the bicycle used to be in Shenmue 2. I think it was probably like a quest of some sorts. I think actually Switch translated something that said about a medicine delivery that Ryo had to do from. There was like a little shop, like a medicine shop, and so you'd get on the bike there and came up with their own sort of ideal bicycle path that kind of went up and through into maybe coming into Manmu Park or something like that. Yeah, obviously there's better information than how I'm describing there over on phantomriverstone.com. So search for that post. That's like the bicycle in Shenmue 2. I think might even be called that as the blog post. So moving on now, a couple of also infamous little blips in the series, really. Obviously, Yu Suzuki was trying to give Shenmue a bit of a lifeline in between these years from Shenmue 2 onwards, where the series was on a bit of a hiatus. But he did try and work out an online game which was kind of growing in popularity at the time. Obviously, you've got World of Warcraft and those type of online games. And they thought they'd have a little crack at that, which it's still actually, it hasn't officially been cancelled still. But I think it's maybe a little bit too long ago now that it probably you could consider this cancelled or long cancelled now.
Yeah, I'd say that's firmly in the bin.
Yeah. But anyway, I've got a little bit of a synopsis here. Let's see what it says. So it says, Shenmue Online was an announced MMORPG where players participated in scenarios from Shenmue 2. In 2004, Shenmue Online was announced to be developed in joint venture between Sega Japan and JC Entertainment of Korea. Players would join one of 3 clans led by Shenhua, Huiying, and Ren, and go through the story by completing tasks given by their leaders. During the course of the story, each clan interacts with one another in both friendly and hostile situations, with Landy and Ryo making appearances in those situations as well. Yu Suzuki stated that the game would take place not only in Hong Kong and China, but Macau as well, and appeared happy when asked what players would be able to do there. That's a little interesting tidbit there. Shenmue Online's world was due to be much bigger than the home versions, including over 1,200 buildings and locations, and it would be possible for each player to have his or her own house. And again, while never officially cancelled by Sega, it is presumed to have been cancelled around 2007. So, have you got any experiences with this Matt at all? Obviously, we did speak about the trailer before recording the podcast, which, if you haven't seen the trailer to Shenmue Online, I think there's more than one actually, but some of the elements of those trailers could be foreshadowing of what we're going to see in the future of the series.
Again, it adds to the lore of the series more than anything else. I mean, you can look at it from a business standpoint and go whether it was a flawed ideology or not to go with it, because I suppose they must have drilled in a lot of money to this for it then to get canned, which I suppose the question on everybody's minds at the time is, why wasn't it Shenmue 3 when they're probably pouring in millions of dollars to it? I don't know. I mean, like you say, I think those MMORPGs were getting a lot of traction at the time. Had it been released and been successful, it would have probably funded the series, remasters, and everything else in between. So
that's probably what they were hoping for, really, wanted the,
I think you're right.
Gaining traction.
I think you're right. I think that's what they were going for. But if we go back into obviously the trailer itself, it foreshadows things like Shenhua's powers and sort of the talk around that. And there's just little snippets in there of what could be coming. So it's divisive, isn't it? Shenmue Online in the community. I'd have played it regardless. I think had it seen a release over in the West, I'd have played it because it was Shenmue and I would be supporting the series. Being honest, was it what I wanted? No, absolutely not.
No.
I wanted...
And the actual fighting didn't look the greatest, did it? The little fighting.
There's all sorts of rumours and talk that parts of it were reskinned from another game. It went through so many sort of development changes over time and fallouts, and it had a checkered development, and I don't think it was a surprise that it got canned in the end, although unofficially, because they never actually said it was, and I don't understand that stance on it either. But yeah, it's an interesting take on what they were looking to do to try and make the series and franchise more viable. It's a shame it never saw the light of day, barring I think there was a beta test in Korea and South Korea somewhere. And if you want sort of one of the holy grails of the Shenmue community, if anyone's got the beta of Shenmue Online and they want to release it to the community, I'll buy you a beer.
Do it. More than a beer.
I'll buy you 2 beers.
Yeah. No, but I agree. I mean, I was really into MMORPGs at the time, actually. So this was kind of almost tailored towards my tastes at the time. But obviously, the footage of the combat and all that sort of stuff wasn't on par with the similar releases at that time. And obviously, Shenmue had already got a really good fighting system based off of Virtua Fighter. So seeing the sort of stiff motion, weapon-based kind of fighting just didn't really feel that Shenmue to me. Obviously, some of the screenshots look really nice, and ultimately it would have been great to have been able to play this game. But obviously, it's not really affected us too much in terms of the series, especially now that we've got Shenmue 3. And obviously, it's not really something that fans are really crying out for, an online Shenmue, or at least this game to actually get its release. I don't think a lot of fans will be upset that this never actually got released.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it'd be one of those things that if it ever did get released, it'd be sort of a nice, brilliant, released it.
Yeah.
But like you say, I don't think the community were crying out for it then. I don't think they're crying out for it now. And yeah, it's a difficult point in the franchise's history. But then again, I think it's synonymous with the franchise's checkered history as we go on, isn't it?
But what we did get out of it was I'm not 100% on where they got this from, but we've got some music that they were going to use for the game, and there's quite a lot of tracks really. I think there's a couple of hundred tracks that make up this soundtrack that was either leaked or released at some point. But we're going to play a piece of music now that hasn't actually got a title. Obviously, a lot of the music was actually used again in Shenmue 3, so it's obviously part of that. They keep going on about the 30% unused music. They've only used 30% of the whole music that they created originally for the game, so it's obviously it's got a collection of pieces of music that's in that 70% chunk of stuff that we've never heard kind of thing. And obviously Shenmue 3's used a lot of that with its 300 and whatever tracks that they've released for the soundtrack there, Matt.
Was it 319, or am I just making that up?
319, that sounds about right, yeah, which obviously makes up that Limited Run Games official soundtrack that released recently, which I think you can still pick up.
Yeah.
You can get the vinyl collection or the CD collection, or if you're into digital downloads, there's download it digitally through Bandcamp, I believe. But anyway, we're going to play a song that as part of this Shenmue Online soundtrack. You might not have heard it before, and like I say, it hasn't got a title, but here it is. So that was a piece of music from Shenmue Online, untitled, because we never got a title for it, because the game obviously never saw the light of day. And kind of another game almost that I don't know if you can class it as a game, but Yu Suzuki, again, he's always at the forefront of trying to keep up with current trends, or even creating those trends as well. But obviously, at the time, there was a successful mobile game called Mafia Wars, and I think Yu Suzuki saw that there was a bit of a boom in mobile games becoming a thing. So he dipped his toes in the water for a game he called Shenmue City. I think it's also called Shenmue Gai in Japan. So Shenmue City was a game in the Shenmue series released for smartphones in Japan, so this was actually released. The game conceived a way of relaunching the game franchise by series creator Yu Suzuki. It was announced in late 2010 for cell phones and also for PCs, but only a cell phone version was actually released. The game was discontinued in late 2011. The main character is a follower of Ryo Hazuki and is guided by him to explore, attempt quests, and grow stronger through battle. Characters from other Shenmue games make appearances as well, and much of the original Shenmue plot is retold. Shenmue City was first conceived when Yu Suzuki noted the popularity of Mafia Wars, a social game designed for mobile phones. He formed a plan that if the game was a success, its popularity could be leveraged to make another mainline Shenmue game. Yu Suzuki stated in an interview with Famitsu that he wanted to explore the series without very expensive graphics or sound elements like the original game. The game's beta began on September the 21st, 2010 on the Japanese content provider DENA's Yahoo Mobile mobile gaming platform, I've never heard of. On October the 7th, 2010, Shenmue City was also announced for the PC as a browser-based game with a winter 2010 release date, but was never actually released, and the game was shut down completely on December the 26th, 2011. Merry Christmas. So I personally, I think this was kind of my hiatus on dojo forums and just following Shenmue as a whole, really. So this title actually passed me by. I don't actually remember anything about this game. Just seeing some of the screenshots here now, it looks quite cool, and it'd be something I'd be interested in if they were to revive it somehow for current mobile phones. But do you have an experience with this one, Matt?
It's like you. It's very minimal. I was in and out of the various communities at the time because I think we were sort of going through a dark phase with Shenmue, and I think the logic behind it is quite sound in terms of taking advantage of mobile gaming, which is, as we know now, is still insanely popular. So I don't know why it never really translated into a success, because I've never played it, so it's difficult for me to...
Is it even available? I mean, did anyone ever save the download file that they had to download or whatever eventually? I can't say I've ever seen it shared or anything.
Again, if anybody's got it in the community, there's some beer on the line for you.
Maybe a Japanese fan might have it on an old device if they could, search that attic or something and dig out an old phone.
Would it work though? Because it was taken offline. So unless you can get...
That's true. Yeah, you'd have to bypass the online connection or something.
Yeah.
It depends if all the content was online or not. That's true. Yeah.
No, because be interesting, because obviously the passport disc was cracked to work offline eventually, because I remember Switch again was heavily involved in that project, if my memory serves me correctly, but we'll talk about that another time, I'm sure. So whether a similar principle could be applied here, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if so, obviously I'm pretty sure then someone would be able to rebuild it, similar to what we've done with Suka Pass. We've taken the passport stuff and rebuilt the passport disc. That would be awesome if there was able to get our hands on some sort of version of this. That that would be amazing, really, to revive this ourselves as well.
It's one of these things. Again, I think from my own experience of when I heard about it, I was like, nah. It's a mobile game. I can see the point behind it. I can see why they're looking at it. But I'd play it. Of course, I would. It's Shenmue. I'd certainly give it a pass and have a go at it. But again, it wasn't what I wanted. I understand the logic. I understand why they were thinking about doing it. It makes me wonder how much money's been thrown at Shenmue projects that never saw the light of day.
It's true.
It's scary.
It's a shame. It's scary, but it's also it's a shame, really, that Yu Suzuki did the stuff when he did, because obviously, if he'd hung on a few more years, I mean, mobile phones really, really hit the charts, didn't they? You got your Candy Crush and all that sort of stuff. I don't say Shenmue would have been on par with terms of income generation. We're talking billions for some of these mobile games, but I think he's just a little bit too early with his obviously he's always trying to be at the forefront of new technology and everything. He's mindful of, what I'm trying to say. He comes up with a lot of these ideas himself, really, before they're actually even possible to be made. So same with the original Shenmue. It was a game that was well ahead of its time, really. The graphics and everything they managed to get out of the Dreamcast was insane. It's a testament to Yu Suzuki. Even going back to his arcade days, some of these games revolutionized the industry, really, because he was the first to come up with these concepts and these ideas. And I think he's just a little bit of detriment. What's the phrase where he's a bit too, he does it to himself kind of thing, if you know what I mean, where he comes up with these ideas and stuff, but they're a little bit too early in terms of being able to really blow up.
I know what you're saying, and I think again, it's difficult to know without playing the game whether it would have caught on anyway, because I don't know its quality. I don't really know anything too much about it apart from the screenshots that were available online at the time. So it's one of those that you file under. Yeah, if it got released, I'd be happy to have a go at it, but it really isn't at the forefront of my mind anymore. I get why it was done. I get the idea behind it, and I think it was a solid idea. And like you say, it's probably 2-3 years too early. It's one I file under. Be nice to see, but not particularly bothered about. If it happened, if it did come out, or we saw a cracked version of it or something like that we could sort of have a look into, fine. But it goes back to me saying, I want mainline Shenmue games. I'm being greedy more than anything else. I've probably been a bit harsh to it, in actual fact, a bit harsher than I should be, because what I'm probably forgetting here is that Yu Suzuki was looking for a viable way to continue the series because he knew the fans wanted it, and it was an idea that, had it taken off, could well have done that, a bit like Shenmue Online. So exactly. Maybe I'm doing it a bit of a disservice in that respect, but it's the way I feel about it, and it's just my humble opinion at the end of the day.
I agree. I mean, obviously he's dipped his toes in all these different things, and it's nice of the guy to keep wanting to try and revive the series for all the fans. That was when you saw him in the Kickstarter trailer for Shenmue 3. How he really hones down that he wants to do it for the fans. The fans' passion throughout this. We've always been there, keeping the series alive ourselves, really, especially recent years on social media, where we've got a platform to voice demands, really, that we're after continuation of the Shenmue series. So the fact that he's tried to add these stabs at the online game or the phone game to try and generate the income himself, basically, to try and then go on to create a next mainline Shenmue game, it's really nice to see that he cares that much about us, and obviously it's his magma opus that he eventually would like to finish, I'm sure. And another attempt at that in recent times is Shenmue the Animation. So quick little summary of the Shenmue the Animation. So the studio behind this, which it was only recently announced actually a few months ago, that the anime series. So the studio behind this is Telecom Film Animation and Solar Entertainment, and it's been directed by Chikara Sakurai, with obviously the executive producer Yu Suzuki. Release date is, we haven't actually got one yet, but we've got down here 2021. I guess that's tentative release date there.
I remember in the press release they said 2021, but if I'm being safe about it, I'd say that'd be late 2021.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, we've not seen anything really since this, so depending on how far along they are with this, it could be a while away, really. But it's going to be on Adult Swim and Crunchyroll, who've, I think, recently just been bought out by someone I remember reading.
Sony just bought them.
Sony, was it? Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see what actually happens with that now. Obviously, Crunchyroll's still a thing, so it'll still be on the Crunchyroll platform, but I don't know if that's going to affect anything in the long term.
I thought so. I think they'd probably just let it continue organically. Whether that changes anything for any subsequent seasons, I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting thought, isn't it?
It'd be nice if, obviously, hopefully it does well, and we don't have to have this bit of a dilemma that we're going to get a second series or not. But I think it'll shape up quite nicely, because there's not too many video game based adaptations into anime form, at least, is there? I know there's been a couple that SEGA have done with, they did a Phantasy Star, and there has been a Virtua Fighter anime a while back that I'm not sure, obviously, were that successful. But again, I think we've got two decent platforms here, Adult Swim and Crunchyroll, that it's actually got a good chance of being a success.
Yeah, you've got to consider there's millions of people who watch anime signed up to those services, so I think, as you say, it's a gateway to those people to come and look at Shenmue. as a franchise.
Okay, so a quick overview of the anime. An anime television series of Shenmue was announced on September the 4th, 2020 at the virtual Crunchyroll Expo. The series will be directed by Sakurai Chikara, with its original video game creator Yu Suzuki serving as executive producer. It will be animated by Telecom Animation Film, with production management handled by Solar Entertainment. The series will contain 13 episodes, which we've been told covers all of Shenmue 1 and part of Shenmue 2, and it will air English dubbed on Adult Swim's Toonami programming block and streamed by Crunchyroll. Has that actually been announced that it's got an English dub, do you know?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything official. Take from it what you will, that Corey Marshall, voice of Rio, and Brianna Knickerbocker, who was the English voice of Shenhua and Shenmue 3, any news about it, they keep retweeting. I'm just putting it out there.
That's very true.
Putting it out there, putting that seed in people's minds. Just,
Yeah. So whether that's because they're involved or they're hinting, like, can we be involved?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'd be very interesting to see whether that comes to fruition. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions around what it's going to look like, what it's going to cover. I know Famitsu did a recent interview with Yu Suzuki, or was it IGN Japan? I can't remember who it was. I think they had 2 episodes animated and done. They hadn't been dubbed in Japanese yet, but I remember them saying that Yu Suzuki was very happy with what he'd seen.
It's obviously going to be dubbed in Japanese as well.
Yeah, cool.
I'd imagine so, yeah. And obviously Brianna is actually, she does a lot of her work in anime.
Huge in anime.
So she's already got a foot in the door, really.
I would be surprised if she didn't do it, or if she hadn't been asked to do it, if it's getting an English dub. She's a massive name in anime circles. So it would be a natural progression, I think. Again, it's all guesswork on my part. Reading that interview from Famitsu, which again has been translated by Switch, who does a lot of these for the community groups. It's interesting to see that they're invested in the Shenmue story. They're invested in giving it their own interpretation of it, but not straying too far off what we already know. And if Yu Suzuki's happy with the quality of it and what he's seeing, then I suspect as a fan base, we're going to be very, very pleased with it. And I think, James, you touched on this in a previous interview. It's a segue for everybody into the series, isn't it? Like, Shenmue's an old video game, and how many people want to pick up a video game from 1999 and give it a chance? This can do it. And if you made this point previously, and I think I'm going to state this openly. It's a fantastic opportunity for the franchise to further its audience, but I want Shenmue 4 as a game.
I'm pretty certain of that. I mean, what you're alluding to there was we did a conversation with Casey, didn't we, for Radio Sega's other show, the Sega Lounge, and we did discuss the anime there. And obviously, like you say, I think it is a great platform to build a fan base surrounding Shenmue. People that aren't willing to go back and replay 20-year-old games, even if they are on the current gen. It's still a bit of a hurdle for some people, especially going in thinking like, oh, this game's 20 hours, this game's 30 hours, and then Shenmue 3 is 40 hours or whatever. It's quite a big ask, really. So for people to be able to easily digest and catch up on the story, I think the animation could really help in that regard. And then obviously if Shenmue 4 does come out, we've got even more fans hopefully behind the series who are willing to pick that game up and continue the story of what they already know now because of the anime. I think it's going to be a good platform to generate more fans like that. And obviously because not being a game, kind of, they could go in different directions with it as well. They could go before the game series started and have a look into Ryo's relationship with his father before obviously ultimately he gets murdered. It'd be nice to see some of that in there. And obviously there's a few missing chapters we know about, like the boat chapter between Ryo leaving Japan to get to Hong Kong. There's a bit in there that's has previously only been in a comic form, but it'd be cool if they revisited that for the animation and we actually got to see and see what happens on the boat journey there across to Hong Kong. And hopefully they can do a few more things with the character relationships and just be nice to add a bit more to the series. I mean, I'm going to watch it definitely because I want to see how they recreate the game series that we love so much, and just see what kind of elements they throw in there, how they retell the story. It's just really exciting to me to see. But obviously, again, like you said there, we do want Shenmue 4 as a game. And I don't think there's any doubt of that. I think this is just another one of those Yu Suzuki's dipping his toe in to try and generate a little bit more income towards that actually being a thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think if it's successful and it gets further seasons, so you cover the rest of Shenmue 2, you cover Shenmue 3, and then everybody's at the same point, aren't they? We're all at the same stage when hopefully Shenmue 4 is released. We're all starting from that exact same point, and we can all sort of continue that journey together, hopefully with a widened fan base and widened community. And I think we're going to segue this in here, because we were talking about Shenmue 4, is don't forget, we are asking for Shenmue 4 on the 4th of every month. Hashtag Let's Get Shenmue 4, with all the community groups joining in. So that's the dojo, that's Shenmue Forever, it's the 500k, Shenmue Master, Phantom River Stone, and everybody else. If I've forgotten you, I apologise. I'm doing this on the spot.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more. There's Sega Saturno and Shenmue Photos. There's that Shenmue 2 differences. There's a lot of different people involved in the Shenmue community, and obviously we don't want to miss anyone out there. So
if you haven't joined in on these tweets and social media posts on the 4th of every month, do it, because it keeps the voices out there that we're not satisfied with just getting Shenmue 3. We want Shenmue 4 and beyond.
And that is a good segue just to quickly ask, as we close the end of this podcast off, Matt, what do you want out of Shenmue 4 going forward? Like, what would you like to see?
I'm going to refer back. I'm going to do a bit of self-plugging, shameless plug, shall we say.
Okay.
I want, if anybody's listened to our interview with Ryan Payton, he talks about how Shenmue 3 should be the basis for Shenmue 4 to really push on in terms of the story content, in terms of how it progresses things forward. And that's what I want from Shenmue 4. I want it to build on Shenmue 3. I want it to almost do what Shenmue 2 did for Shenmue 1. It took on that formula, it improved upon it, it hit the story hard, and it turned out to be an absolute masterpiece. That's what I want from Shenmue 4. I want it to come out all guns blazing in terms of the story, and in terms of those content, in terms of that character development. And I want Yu Suzuki to show the world that while Shenmue 3 is we're back, but it's almost like an asterisk to it, but wait till you see what's coming next moment. I want Shenmue 4 to take that opportunity and to just hit an absolute home run and create a masterpiece. That's what I want from it.
I would echo that entirely what you just said. That's exactly what I'd like to see as well. I think, like you say there, Shenmue 4 being Shenmue's 2, Shenmue 4 being the Shenmue 2 to Shenmue 1, it's just in terms of that kind of balance between introducing characters and gameplay elements to completely blowing the water with story elements and everything. I think they could redo that with the Shenmue 3 to 4. They've got the engine built now, they've got the gameplay and all that sort of stuff they've had to rebuild from the ground up. And Shenmue 4 then can just focus on delving deeper into the story and the history behind the mirrors and that sort of stuff. And it'll be really interesting to see how Yu Suzuki goes about continuing the tale there. Obviously, at the end of the Shenmue 3, spoiler, we're going across the Great Wall, a bit of a journey there to the Cliffside Temple, and it'll be interesting to see how that continues the story going forth.
Definitely.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that, actually.
Most people listen to this.
Sorry for spoiling the end of Shenmue 3.
Yeah, sorry, spoiler alert. Yeah.
Sorry, Flagship. If you haven't finished the game yet, Flagship. So, anyways, guys, I just want to thank you all for listening to this little special Shenmue Dojo podcast that we produced here. This is the first of hopefully many, and this was in conjunction with Radio SEGA's WinterFest. And we're going to close the show with 2 pieces of iconic Shenmue music. Obviously, it's Christmas time now, so we're going to play Christmas on Dobuta Street, and we're going to end with Shenmue's original theme, which is also known as Sedge Tree. So thanks for listening, everyone, And me and Matt will see you again next time.
Good Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
You're locked in to Radio Sega's WinterFest 2020. Snow, shows, and Sega all weekend long.
Hi, I'm James Brown, co-owner of ShenmueDojo.com.
Hi, I'm Matt Oliver, co-owner of ShenmueDojo.com.
And our fondest memory of Shenmue is kind of a bit of a shared experience. Back in the start of 2019, we attended Magic Monaco. Obviously, this was before Shenmue 3 had been released. And we were obviously going there to see the latest footage and just be part of the Shenmue community at the event and represent the dojo. And whilst we were there, Matt, I don't know if you want to let the listeners into a bit of an experience we both shared in the hotel of what was that hotel called?
So it was in the Fairmount Hotel, and for those of you who watch Formula One, you'll see the chicanes in Monaco that go down towards the tunnel, and it's on the corner of the chicane that goes left. So yeah, it's quite a little iconic hotel. But anyway, long story short, we had been invited over to meet with a few of the other Shenmue community people, fans, etc., in Peter Campbell's hotel room, who was the previous dojo owner before us. And it got on quite late, hadn't it, James? And he was booting us out of his room because I think
he's trying to get rid of us.
A bit worried about.
We were causing a bit of noise really in his room. Yeah,
a few of us have been, had a few to drink. I'm not naming names. Sorry. And yeah, and me and you left first. I think you left, and I sort of followed you out, didn't I?
I was trying my best to kind of convince other people to leave because obviously it was getting a bit late and a bit noisy. So I was thinking if I picked up and said, okay, I think it's time to go, other people would start following. And obviously a few of us actually were staying in the same hotel, weren't we? Yeah, so yeah. I was trying to suggest to people, if you come with us, we can all walk back to the hotel together. So obviously, as we left the room, I think it was me and you, and we went down in the elevator with Peter, who kind of just seeing us off basically and saying goodbye to us until the next day. Obviously, we'd re-meet everyone for the actual event. But once we reached the ground floor of the hotel lobby, we were kind of waiting in just that little area just by the doors for everyone else to join us, weren't we?
Yeah, we were, and sort of unbeknownst to us, we just sort of sat there chatting away. and Yu Suzuki decided to come out. I think they were probably working on the trailer for Monaco the next day or something, and he walked straight sort of towards us, didn't he? As we were stood in the hotel lobby, and so it
was surreal because I had my back to where they were coming from. There was actually like a group of maybe 5 or 6 Japanese men.
Yeah, it was.
And at the back of the line was Yu Suzuki. I remember you clocking him and just noticing and said, "Oh, it's Yu-san," like that kind of thing. And I didn't know what you meant because we were just having a conversation, and you just suddenly said Yu-san, and I was like, okay. And then you said it again, Yu-san, and pointed, and I turned around and saw like this line of Japanese men, and then at the back there was Yu Suzuki, and I think he was in that. He wore it quite a lot at the time, wasn't it? The striped sort of shirt, the black and white striped shirt. And as soon as I saw it, you just don't know what to do you? I think you cried out "Yu-san" again, and he did clock us and came walking over to us.
Yeah, he did, and he was very, very polite. I think he'd had a long day by the looks of it. Poor man.
He did. I don't know if he was going to the toilet. Yeah. He looked like he was heading in a different direction to those men.
But yeah, he had a very quick conversation with us. I think you showed him an early build of Suka Pass, wasn't it?
That's true, yeah. I can't remember now if I showed him. It would have been ideal to show him the iPad, but I feel like I had to like whip something out quick, and I just got my phone out. So I was showing him on my phone, which obviously it's still great on your phone. It's just I wish I'd have shown him a full screen version on the iPad. I can't remember if I did or not, but
I can't remember.
I showed him a few. I showed him a few of the menus and went through the character profile section, and he seemed impressed.
Yeah,
obviously he didn't know what to say. And we didn't really know what to say. It was one of those surreal moments.
Smiling at it and sort of being intrigued by it. So I think
he was smiling. Yeah, I remember.
But the funny sort of story is after you'd showed him Suka Pass and we said our goodbyes. 10 seconds later, the others came down.
It must have been about more like 5 seconds. As soon as he disappeared behind that side of the room, I'm assuming that's where the toilets were. It just felt like that. He just disappeared around the corner, and literally, probably 2 seconds later after that, everyone showed. The doors of the elevator opened, and it was everyone that was going to follow us back to the hotel, which is. We was just like, you won't guess what's just happened. You've literally just missed Yu Suzuki by 2 seconds.
And I think there was a sort of suspension of disbelief for a minute from a few of them.
I mean, still to this day, people probably don't believe us, but hopefully we just done the little experience some justice there, and everyone hopefully believes us.
It's a heck of a memory, that one. Just so random, so out of the blue, and he didn't have to speak to us, did he? I mean, he took the time to just have a very quick conversation with us, and very, very pleasant, very humble man, actually, having met him there, and I think it set things up nicely for the following day.
And as he walked away, he said, "See you tomorrow," didn't he? He actually said it in English. So, we were like, yep, see you tomorrow, looking forward to the next day. So that's our fondest memory of Shenmue. It's an event, and in fact, the whole Magic Monaco event is an experience that I'll never forget. It was the first time meeting you, Matt. It was the first time meeting many Shenmue fans, and I think it's the start of some really good friendships there. And hopefully, we can do it again someday once, obviously, the current situation is eased away, and we can go back to doing these kind of these big stage events and stuff. It'll be really cool to meet up with everyone again in the future.
Oh, look at the time.